Hello, I'm NBG and welcome to the channel. Sorry there hasn't been a video in a little bit. I've been way too busy making some gold. Now, today is a little bit of a special one. After the shuffle, obviously is pretty much died for the most part, I was looking for other ways to make gold, and really I've been looking for the primary way to make gold, which is going to be just actually crafting, not necessarily shuffling. So I was getting myself ready for season 1 to start, and I had a couple things on my radar in order to make big gold, and lucky for me I was right on one of them. Now today we're going to go over that, and we're going to talk about how I made gold cap in 1 week. Yeah, 1 week. It wasn't even that hard. I could actually make a lot more if I spent more time doing it. So we're going to talk about that today. So let's get started. So I have a couple disclaimers kind of things that I need you guys to hear before we get too deep into this. This can be done with basically any profession for the most part, especially like professions that are making things that people need in order to push, whether it's PvP, PvE, whatever. This can be brought into any profession. This is just the profession and the item and everything that I used. I'm going to break down kind of how I found it, so on and so forth. I'm not even spec'd really perfectly for it. It's just the way that it worked out. I'll let you know now that if everybody went out and did this, it would be ruined very, very, very quickly, and it just wouldn't be worth your time. You could watch this, and, if there was 100 of you that went out and did this, I think it would be kind of dead, at least for this setup for the most part, at least in comparison to the gold I was making. Now, I did this on stream yesterday. It's where I wanted to show it off first for anybody who was able to make it. Thank you for those who could. And we were able to pull, I did it for 1 hour straight, and I was able to make over 350,000 gold an hour. Like, no joke, 350k an hour. Obviously, you do the math there, it does not take very long to hit gold cap if you're making that kind of gold. And the thing is, the gold I was making yesterday is less than I was making at the beginning of the week, and we'll go ahead and we will talk about that now. So let's talk about how I stumbled upon this, or not necessarily stumbled upon it, but kind of how I, how it worked out. So this is I did this with leatherworking. Now, with leatherworking, let's go back in time. I had told everybody that I was probably going to go into like curing and tanning because I had the idea of making the armor kits. Well, that kind of ended up failing initially. Pretty hard. It wasn't worthwhile. So like within that first week, I was like, crap, what am I gonna just put points into now? I decided that I was gonna go into Primordial, and I went into Primordial and I went into Bestial for a couple things. One, I was kind of hoping that maybe crafting the bow would be worthwhile. It hasn't been. And then two, I knew that if I went this direction, I'd be able to make like the PvP gear pretty high quality, specifically with plans of making the Inferious stuff at decently high quality, or at max quality eventually, right? So this is why I went this direction. Now, in doing so, I ended up having, both the main discipline for skill, like main leatherworking discipline for skill, and I had, some points put into here that I just ended up being like, crap, let's go elsewhere. So that's kind of how this set up. I will talk about probably at the end of this video how I would approach this with any profession, not even just this one, but to do the same thing with another item. I will talk about that at the end, because I would not, if you're like, how do I copy you? What am I gonna do? Don't copy me. I really wouldn't. I would do this slightly differently, and we will talk about that. But anyway, that is how I stumbled upon like my current build, which isn't good for this. Now the real question is, why don't you hurry up and talk about how you made gold cap in a week? Like, enough of this bullcrap, just get to it, right? Well, this is what I ended up creating. I had the idea that Fang Adornments might be sought after because it provides a pretty good embellish, which is physical attacks sometimes deal extra physical damage, and also add, it's an embellish anyway, so it's used in crafting. And I was like, well, it's not that expensive to make, and it's semi-difficult to make it at tier 3. And at least, a week or so ago, I was noticing that they were fairly expensive, but it wasn't really worth going out of the way to crafting. Nobody was needing them, and I was kind of hoping that people coming into this week, into first push week, that when people are crafting their weapons and doing those sorts of things, that they might actually want them. That was kind of the idea, and it really depended on the market and the pricing. However, I also knew that the Fangandormans used the Earthshine scales. If you look like through Auctionator and stuff like that, you kind of get a random, like somewhat reliable amount to craft. Earthshine scales are a vast majority of the crafting costs, and I knew I had to do a little bit of work, but I was able to get it to where I could get tier 2 scales and Inspire proc tier 3 is the way I currently have it worked out. And the reason this worked is because of the extra points I believe I had stuck in curing and tanning and everything else. I was able to do both. So I was like, okay, now look at it. I'm not even spec'd into. I only recently put these 7 points into inspiration. I'm not even spec'd into inspiration. All my inspiration comes from like other smaller nodes throughout the tree for the most part. And we'll talk about more about that in a minute. But anyway, that's kind of what I thought about. I was like, well, if I could at least inspire proc tier 3s, maybe what I could do is I could craft these for myself, take up the cost for that, take all the tier 3s, post the tier 3s to the auction house, because I was noticing the tier 3 Earthshine scales were selling pretty good. And then basically make these damn near free to myself to craft. The tier 2s or tier 1s of these fangs are like less than 50 gold or something. Like, they're really, really bad. You have to hit tier 3 or you don't make any gold. You know, but I knew that, like, well, all it takes is hitting a few T3s if something's selling at a high price. That's where all the gold's coming in. So let's take a look at where the market is right this second. I haven't actually checked this morning. So I do believe... Let's look at Fangandormans. So, one, seems like people might be catching on. But let's talk about what I was selling these at. I was originally selling these on day 1, so Tuesday into Wednesday. They were selling at like 27.5k, right? They were selling at a pretty high price. And then like Wednesday through even yesterday, they were selling between like 14.5 and about 12.5 at like the lowest. Now, there's been a couple dicks who have gone in and trying to drive down the market. There's one on a particular server I would like to call out, but I won't. I don't know why when everybody posts something at like 13.5, you have to come in and post it at like 8.9. You're a jerk, but, you know, we'll move past that. Anyway, so this is what I've been selling. Now, we'll go over it because I'm going to do a round of this to show you, but these do not sell super fast, right? You have to treat this. The only reason this works, if you're looking for something to craft and set it and forget it, this is not an option for you. I would also say if you do any sort of crafting like that, and if you're selling something that is at a high price, like something like this, or higher, like enchants, we'll talk about that. But there's numerous other things you can take this same knowledge and apply it to. That if you're just setting it and forgetting it, you're not gonna do well. And we'll go over my strategy and what I did after I make my batch. But anyway, they're selling at 18.89. I would still make pretty good profit, and I'll show you that. I would still make pretty good profit here. Now, the other thing that I was able to do was make the Earthshine scales. Here they are. So if you look, tier 2s, which are the ones I'm using. I need actually tier 2s to make the fangs. Using the tier 2s, they're like 400 a pop. Every time you do the craft, it's like 800 gold, essentially. In value, and it only costs, what did it say, like 954, so you're not even losing that much crafting them yourself. However, when you hit tier 3, they're 1200 gold, and then you're also getting 2, right? So it became really easy that with as much Inspire as I have, which if you notice, I have 28% for these, and I have 27% for these. With as much Inspire as I had, it was pretty easy to craft these for myself, get enough of these that the Inspire procs would pay for basically all the materials I needed. And then all of the T3 fangs I got back were essentially just profit. Just profit. So anyway, that is kind of how that works. Now let's break down a run of it and kind of show you. So I will walk you through a set of what I did. So what I would do is I'm making my own Earthshine scales, right? So I'm coming in here. I usually did a batch of like 50 crafts. So let's see, I have 5 scales on me. So I need 95. So let's go ahead and write some of these numbers down so that you guys can stay on top of it. So we got 9145. Let me bring this up here. 9145. I will go back. That means I need 50 Awakened Frosts. Do I have any? I do. Well, let's just buy 50 so you guys can see the exact amount. 11,685. And then we need the Awakened Earths. And by the way, I was doing this when Awakened Earths was like over 1,000 gold. So those are 551. Obviously, with Earths, you can go ahead and take a look at Rousings, right? And sometimes the Rousings are a lot cheaper, so let's save a little bit of gold. So that's basically 26,050. 26,050. So for the other items, I have a lot of the mats, but I'm going to go ahead and try to get the numbers for you so you guys can see. I usually do somewhere around 30, maybe a little bit more, and these have jumped and been great. I've done anything. I've paid 400 gold from these. I've paid 20 gold from these. These jump around like crazy. But like let's say I make like 30 or so, because that's usually about the amount. So we have about 2,100 gold here. Let's just quickly get that down. And then you have the rock fangs, which are basically nothing. Just to show you, rock fang, same kind of thing. I would need about 60. As you can see, 60 is like nothing, right? It's 100 gold, not even hardly worth writing down. But I'm just gonna show you the maw, the aquatic maw. Same thing. There's like another 60 gold. Mastodon, as you can see here, and it'd only be like 30, 35. Another like 100 gold, and then the resilient leather. Resilient leather, it's about 1,800, 1,600, depends on procs really, if for like resourcefulness. I don't know the exact amount. I usually always buy like at least I have like 1,800. So let's say I buy 1,800. So let's just say that's another 4K, just to try to make sure that we're covering all of our bases here. So here's the gold spent. Let's go ahead and add that up. All right, so I just spent, let's see, 52,980 gold on the mats, just so you guys know. That's how much is spent. Now let's go craft. Alright, here we are. Now I want you to guys keep in mind a couple things before we get started. This is a inspiration based crafting method. My inspiration needs to be higher. You can only get so much, but the higher it is, the better. Like if you're doing this with 15% inspiration, you're gonna fail. Just letting you know, it's not gonna work out. My inspiration is relatively high. That's why this works out. I have a garbage, green inspiration tool, and I have like the tier 2 inspiration on it. That's currently, like, honestly, that's like minimum, and it's a must. It just is. You need the inspiration. I mean, look at that. That's like 111 inspiration out of my like 211. Absolutely, this is a must. The more inspiration you have, the better off this is. Again, the whole goal is to get these high enough skill to where an inspiration proc will proc you T3. You can see I have 253. An inspiration proc is another 131. 253 plus 131 is 385 or 84 or something. So I have like an extra 9 skill basically to be able to hit these into T3. That is the whole goal. Something I want to point out is take a look at these. The fangs are 28%. There is a really cool item, which is the Sagacious Incense. Now, the Sagacious Incense will give you inspiration. It'll give you 20 inspiration, which you're like, oh, well, 20 inspiration, that's not a lot. Well, there's T1, T2, and T3, and I believe they all give 20, but they're all for different amounts of time. Like the T1 is only 10 minutes worth, the T2 is 20, and I think the T3 is 30 minutes. So you can look into those for a little bit of extra inspiration. I will just use one just so you guys can see. But once you go ahead and use this, first of all, you have to be standing like on top of the damn thing. But I use it, and then I have the incense. It's on the ground. You can see another inspiration of 20. What does an inspiration of 20 give me? If you look, that jumped me up 2%. It's nothing to scoff at. Like, it's actually helpful. Now, I only spent like 1,000 gold on the T2 one. If I get one extra proc, it essentially pays for itself, plus some. So, it's probably worth using, right? So, what do? I have all the materials. You know, I have enough to make 50. That's what I do. Let's go ahead and make these. I start, you know, you start with the Earthshine scales, and I make 50. Let's go ahead and watch. You can see here's one T3 proc. Another T3 proc. You know, again, I have very minor multi-craft, very minor other stuff. The more T2s I get, the more fangs I can make. The more T3s I get, those just go on the auction house. So, honestly, sometimes it's better that you get a little bit of extra T2s. If I'm getting procs, I'd rather those procs be on the fangs. But let's go ahead and fully complete this. I'll show you guys everything so that you can see. Got another 25 more to go. I usually get around 26 to 30 Earthshine scales, T3s, by the way. Just so you guys like have a number, and I'll talk about that when we get to the fangs as well, on like what's good and what's bad. This is inspiration based. Sometimes you get absolutely screwed by inspiration, and sometimes it really, really goes your way. Keep that in mind. So this looks, even with the incense, which again it's only like 2%, that this is going to be a relatively normal craft. What did I get, 26? Yeah, that's pretty much probably my average, I would say. Pretty much normal on how many T6s I got. And then the Earthshine, I have 74 total. First of all, make sure that you don't like craft all and end up using your T3s. You really want to sell these back to the auction house. So I have 74 of these. Let's go ahead and craft all on these, and we're hoping for as many procs as we can get. A good amount, like 33 is probably about the average of how many I make, somewhere between like 30 and 37, just depending on how many procs you get on the scales. To me, 4 is kind of the bad mark. 4 and below really, really sucks. 6 or 7 is probably average. Anything over 7 is pretty good. So let's do it. Started off with one T3 right away. Let's see how lucky or unlucky I get for the video. 2. Usually I can kind of start breathing once I get at least 4, which I think we have now. Oh, look at that. I got a multi-craft on it too. I multi-crafted like 7 of these one time. It was fantastic. So this is a pretty good... I'm having pretty good luck on this one. Maybe slightly better than normal. Let's chalk it all up to that incense. Incense OP. Ooh, ooh, let's go. Oh, I'm stupid. I ended up using a lot of the T3s even though I was telling you not to. So don't do what I did. So that kind of hurt. That kind of messes up the numbers a little bit. But at the same time, I got so many of these back. Yeah. Whoops. But let's show you what happens when you screw up like that. So after running the quick numbers, this is what I came up with. If you look at it, if I say that I had 26 scales, because that's what I had, and only 9 fangs, this is coming out to be about the same, right? It's coming out to be about the same. We were having a total of like 110. You know, I have 12 and 4. It's about the same as this. Of 26 and 9, it's about the same exact profit. So either way, it doesn't really change the numbers too much at all, even though I did a whoopsie. But if you look here, that's 59,000 profit. However, unlike a lot of other things, this isn't just, oh cool, post it on the auction house and walk away. You actually have to sell this kind of thing, and I would do the same thing for gems and enchants and other things like this. You have to sell these aggressively, because these in particular do not sell fast. They don't. So this is what I do. I go ahead and I post, and I look at the total number. I can see there's 173, and I know I was the most recent person to post. And I do the same thing with the scales, but I only have 4. So, and then I come back over here, and I literally sit here and refresh. Now, I'm doing this at 7:30 in the morning, mind you. So, there's a pretty good likelihood that it might take me a few minutes to sell some of these. But this is exactly how I do it. So when I have a stack of like the scales, what I end up doing is I do the scales, and I usually do like 5 of the scales. And there we go. Oh, I thought we got one. I do 5 of the scales and I post them, and I just go back and forth. Like if I had something like this, I would just go back and forth, and I'll be like, okay, I'll post 5. You know, I go, 251, 173, 251, 173. If you can see how I'm doing that, and I literally just go back and forth. And if it goes down, I know somebody's came down or they pulled theirs off, and if the number goes up, then I know somebody posted above me, and I would post another one. It's tedious, but for something that doesn't fly off the shelves, I want to make sure I get my gold, and that's how I've been doing it. And it would be nice if some would sell real quick so I could show you that they do sell. But this is one of those things that, again, this is 7:30 in the morning. Probably not a great time to be doing this. Let's put it to you this way. As tedious or maybe as annoying as it is, if you do it at the right time and you don't have a ton of competition, I mean, gold cap in a week, I think, speaks for itself. So my wife, who has, before yesterday, had never had over like 550k total, made, she's up to like 1.5 million, and it took her like an hour and a half, I think, is what she spent doing it. Oh, I think we finally had one sell. So there you go, you had one sell. So as soon as one sells, I just post up another one, and I make sure that I'm the first one to make the sell. And I do it this way. I just sit here and I refresh. I go back and forth, 251 still. I come back over here, 173, and I fight to be the top dog. That's what I do. And I'll just do one, and I'll keep posting, and I'll use everything in my inventory first. I kind of wish somebody was fighting me on these right now so that you can see. And I'll just do one, and once I use everything in my inventory, then I'll pop on over. I'll run a cancel scan. I'll pull down the ones that got, the ones that somebody beat me on. I'll go grab those, and I will repost. So that is as simple as it is. It's a pretty easy method. Let's go ahead and talk about other options other than the fangs that I'm doing. Depending on when I do it and the price of the items, I do that for 1 hour, and like when I go in and I look at like your auctions, like I'll end up, like if I go to cancel or something, like I will end up having, anywhere between 600k and a million or more gold coming in over an hour. And as you saw, even with the lower numbers, again, I'm selling these at 18.9. I've usually been selling them between like 14.5 and 12.5. 8.9, still making profit. The scales used to sell at like 1,800, now they're down to like 1,100. This stuff is a little bit cheaper to craft though too, so that does help. But even with the numbers where they are right at this moment, it's still over double what I'm putting in. So just kind of keep that in mind. So it makes the math really easy to know that for the most part, the amount pending, at least half of that is profit, essentially. So like you get close to that hour, and it says 6, 7, 800,000. You're making that 300, 400,000 in that hour. I don't know, man. It works. But let's talk about some other ways you can do it. Now, I took something slightly odd that doesn't have a super high sell rate, but does sell. Does it even show you how many I've sold? Yeah, I've sold 76 of these, at least. I don't know if that goes back the whole week. It can't. There's no way that goes back the whole week. Not even close. But I took something that has a little bit slower sell rate, but has a decent margin, right? That I did a little bit of testing, and I was like, oh no, I'm getting these all to sell. I'm good. I just have to be aggressive on it. Now, where could you take this knowledge and apply it to? I would look at specific enchants. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do enchants that only take like 250 skill or something. Like, you need to pick something that can maybe only be obtained via like an inspiration proc, and go the inspiration method of stacking inspiration and then focusing on skill and getting that skill as high as you can. It might require you to do things like this, where you have to go purchase and have somebody craft your blue tools, you know, because these each have +6. If I upgraded this, I can get +10 instead of +6, so there's +4. That's why I did these first, because I needed the skill. You can get stuff like that crafted. You gotta have inspiration enchant. You gotta have the inspiration tool. Things of that nature that you essentially have to stay up on. Now, I would look for things that are not insanely hard to craft via inspiration, but not easy either. There's definitely room that you can do this in alchemy. There's room in enchanting, as well as it's been off and on, but definitely in jewel crafting as well. My buddy, I made a tremendous amount of gold this week. My buddy made more than I did, and he made more than I did doing enchanting and jewel crafting. Jewel crafting has since gone down for him, but as of yesterday, he was still making a killing doing enchanting. Now, you might say, well, it's really hard because you can't get like every enchant I'd want to do. I can only do 1 or 2. That's why him and I both have like 2 or 3 or more of each thing. I think he has like 5 jewel crafters because he wants to be able to make each gem of that super high quality. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort to be able to do it, but you know, it's allowed him to, hey, this one has super high profits. You know, right now it allows him to be able to always be able to make whatever is selling well. But again, I would take the general premise of focusing on inspiration and then getting your skill as high as you can, and taking that skill and going towards a particular craft, like for jewel crafting, like the neck piece, whatever that is, the thing that adds sockets. People were doing it with that, going high inspiration, going setting, being able to make that, being able to proc tier 3. That was making pretty good gold early on. Like I said, a lot of enchants, that was working really well. A lot of gems, that was working really well. I know people are making a killing with alchemy. Unfortunately, that's like the only one I haven't really touched, that and blacksmithing, so I don't have a lot to say there. I did a little bit of research looking myself, and I definitely saw some promise there, but you don't have to do the fangs, right? This is just something I picked because I was well geared, I guess, and well set up for it, and I was like, okay, I might be able to do it on this. It's a relatively difficult thing to make. I'm gonna proc some T3s. Let's just check the market and see, what this looks like. I don't remember how much this was. Is it 103? I'll just post another one just to make sure. Anyway, that's something you should look at. So now let's talk about how I would go about inspecting. If I redid this, what I would end up doing is I would go into the leatherworking tree, right? Like if I'm doing the exact thing. But again, take this and apply it to something else. Inspiration is down here. Now, I would put, 5 points? I would put 5 points into here, and then max inspiration first thing. Why would you do that? Well, each one of these gives +1 inspiration point. It's allowing you to basically get more percentage chance of inspiration. However, these nodes here, this one for 10, this one for 10, and this one for 25, as well as this first one for 5, those grant more skill when crafting leatherworking. As you notice, my inspiration proc is, here, let's go back to this one. My inspiration proc says, 27.1% chance with 131 bonus skill. Those other big nodes will increase that additional skill from 131 all the way up to, I think, 200 is the cap. What that allows you to do is basically, if you fully fill the inspiration wheel, and this works for everything, any recipe that's at least, or at the maximum, I think 400 difficulty, all you would need to do is get to 200 skill, and your inspiration proc will guarantee tier 3. That's the whole point in that. So if you max that, you have to get less skill to be able to reach that 3rd tier on a proc. And then it's just a matter of coming up with the skill. How do you come up with the skill? Well, you do all your treasures, you talk to your master, you do your dragon shards, everywhere that you can get skill, you buy, like, you have to buy all the Crimson Combatant patterns if you're doing something with a Crimson Combatant pattern. You absolutely need to buy them all. and make them all just for the first skill. You need to get all your first skills done, minus, like, you know, epic items. You need to push your skill up as well. Like, I have 80 skill here, plus 18 because of everything. There's a lot of things that you have to do in order to push your skill high enough. That's kind of the hard part, but you need that inspiration first. I could be making these even better at a better clip if I could fill out the inspiration wheel. Not because I need these big nodes anymore, because I don't, but just because each one of these points in here gives me a little bit higher percentage. Like, it's working my percentage up and give me a better shot at doing it. But anyway, so again, I would, boom, 5 here. I would go into inspiration. I think these keep selling, so I need to keep posting. Doing this at the same time, see? They're selling. Anyway, max out inspiration. Then what do you do? Well, specifically for what I'm doing, I would go into primordial. You would have to go 10 points in here, and then I would rush fangs. And then after I hit fangs, I would stop, and I would start looking at the math on how much skill do I need to proc tier 3. Oh man, I still need 80 skill. Where am I getting 80 skill? Is there anything I've missed in the world? Is there any dragon shards of knowledge I can get relatively easy? Can I upgrade my crafting gear? Can I push my skill a little bit higher? All of those kind of things to where I can make tier 3. This, I would pick something else. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. I wouldn't do this because this is really good if you can do the scales too, right? And the scales are a bit harder because what you're going to end up having to do is after you got to... Did these sell again? I think they did. If you got to the primordial and you got to fangs, the fangs are relatively easy to get to crafting at the tier 3. What you're going to have a problem crafting is the scale. Now, what you can end up doing is you can put stuff back into generic leatherworking, because each of these generic leatherworkings are definitely going to help you for both, right? You can get skill for both of them by going into generic. And then if you absolutely, which you'd probably end up having to do and fill out, and then what you would probably have to do is the armor kit ones. I do believe these also give points, if I'm not mistaken. You can put in 1 point and then go and look, right? Like if you have 181 for this scale, apply 1 point, apply it, waste 1 point, go see, did it go up to 182? Oh yes it did, okay, it works. Like, you might end up having to put some points into here to be able to get the scales. They're a little bit harder to craft to get tier 3. But the whole goal is to make it to where your inspiration proc, right? This says 131. 131 plus 206, you want to make sure that that's over 375. As you can see, that would not be, and you're like, oh no, it's not, that's not over. Remember that the materials you use also give skill. I don't have 2 lustrous scales on me, so it's not giving me the right number. So sometimes you might need to go out and just buy maybe the stuff for it so you can really see where your scale is at. I find that really annoying, but you could end up doing that because it's not showing me the right number here. Because obviously I can make these tier 3, but it's because I don't need another scale. Also, I wouldn't do this if I needed to use tier 3 lustrous, and if I needed to use tier 3 resilient. I don't think it's worth doing. Those cost too much. Like, you're losing too much gold that way. So, not just do I have it proccable, I also make sure that the stuff I'm using isn't like super high tier. So anyway, that is how I would go about it. So now let's flip scripts a little bit. By the way, the tier 2s basically don't sell. If you sell any of them, be happy. That's how you have to approach that. Like, who cares? You're gonna have a bajillion of them. But you see, I posted all mine up. So what do I do after that? Now I would go through and do a cancel scan and pull down any of these. Come back here, try to at least sell a couple. And then, you know, just keep the train running. If I sold like 3 or 4 of these, I would go do another batch. This isn't working well this morning because, again, don't try to sell things at 7:30 in the morning to WoW players. They're not online yet. Doesn't really work. But anyway, that's how I would approach this. So, to recap, rush inspiration, rush whatever item it is you're trying to do. Like, you know, if it's a specific scale, if it's something else, rush whatever item that you need. And then once you have that, then go back and be like, okay, now how much skill do I need to be able to proc and get this to T2 so that it'll proc into T3? Okay? Hopefully that helps you guys. Alright, there you have it. I hope that helped you guys, or at least kind of pointed you in the right direction. A couple things to say about it. There's really so much to talk about. Inspiration crafting, where you focus on the inspiration and try to proc things, that's only going to be good for so long. Once people are able to more reliably just flat out craft something at tier 3, then you're just behind at that point. It is a method that is extremely good early, and if they ever have this in an upcoming expansion, God knows I will be rushing inspiration on absolutely everything. That is the way to make gold early. Now, I would be weary of doing the exact thing I am. I don't know how much those are going to fly off the shelves, right? I really don't know. I'm kind of thinking maybe come Tuesday, come reset, maybe they start flying a little bit again. The issue I should have done this at a different time so you could see that they sell a little bit quicker. I mean, I've only been doing this I was only doing that and selling for like 20 minutes, but I sold like 8 of the 12 or something like that. That's definitely a little bit slower rate than what I have been. That obviously drives down the gold per hour. But given that there's 52k profit there, I would still be making quite high amount per hour. Yeah, anyway, I would be weary of doing the exact same thing because I'm not entirely sure how that market's going to end up. I know it's working right now, but I'm also currently trying to set myself up to do basically the exact same thing with a few other items in other professions. So, anyway, I'm going to wait a few hours to post this because I want to make sure I make myself a couple million more before everybody destroys it. But anyway, it has been a fantastic week. By far the most gold I've ever had, and I made more gold this week than I have had over the last, year. Like, it's been a pretty nuts week, and it's worked really, really well. So, hopefully this helps you, point you in the right direction. Just to keep in mind, I didn't sit here for 12 hours a day doing that. I work a normal job like everybody else. I would come home and I did it for a couple hours each night, and I made that much gold. It was absolutely absurd how that was working. But anyway, if you like what you see here, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you would like to see. Let me know what I can do better. I will keep looking out for other great gold methods to share with you guys, other things I'm crafting, other things that are working. I'm trying to take advantage of things like this right now before they're all gone, because eventually we're going to get to a point where it's going to be that, like, set it and forget it for small amounts of profit. That'll eventually happen. But right now, while I can strike it big, I got to strike it big, because I do think that these kind of markets are going to dry up. But right now, they're not dry. So I'm gonna keep on taking advantage of it. So again, like, comment, subscribe. We are like 170 or something subs away from 1,000. We are getting there. Please help me out, and I will see you guys in the next video.